Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. In the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Laura, and this is your flash briefing for the week of May 12th. City Council meet for regular session Tuesday night, 6 in Council Chambers and City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watched live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Lee Summit Fire Department at a fun-filled open house on May 17th from 9 a.m. to noon at Fire Station Number 2, located at 2000 Northeast Rice Road. Bring the whole family to tour the fire station and walk through an inflatable house to learn about fire safety. Don't miss this opportunity to honor their legacy and join the celebration. The first summer concert at Rock the Amp has been booked. Grab your tickets to see Foo Fighters, a tribute to Foo Fighters on May 31st at 7 p.m. at the Legacy Park Amphitheater. They are a highly sought-after act known for delivering an authentic live experience. Get tickets at rocktheamp.net. And sign up for LS Aware, the city's free mass notification system. It can alert residents about a variety of events, ranging from severe weather and other emergencies to more routine announcements, such as road closures and water utility maintenance. Messages will be sent to residents on their preferred communication device. You choose how to be notified. Learn more at lsaware.net. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
Officers en route, 914, armed robbery.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also, for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook, just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift, as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station. And the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better. And that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we had doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back to that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bring your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care and the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. And that's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
I really love living in our historic downtown. I walk my dog around. The shops take her for, they do pub cups at Poppy's, so you can get ice cream with a little dog biscuit in it, which is her favorite thing in the world. My neighbors, we have block parties together. I really like how welcoming and how vibrant it is. It's an amazing place to live. Lee Summit's a really great community. I love living here, and I just wanted to try to find a way to give back, look out for my neighbors, for the community. I've always tried to be involved. Before serving on City Council, I used to volunteer with AFS, which is an organization that hosts foreign exchange students. So my husband and I have hosted kids from around the world and then also volunteered with local families and schools. In my professional life, I'm a paralegal, and then in my personal life, I enjoy reading, sewing. I'm a quilter, so I just finished a log cabin quilt that I'm going to send to my aunt out in DC. I can't claim any of our council accomplishments for myself. This is always a team effort. But I am really excited about the farmers market and event space that we have coming in. It's still in the design phases, but I think it's going to be a really beautiful space, and it's going to really continue keeping our downtown thriving. It's been in progress for a long time, but I think that people are going to really love it when it's done. I think one of my top priorities is going to be attainable housing. That, for example, I've been trying to find a place for my mom in Lee Summit. It's really challenging finding something that really works for a retiree who doesn't have a huge budget. Just trying to make it more attainable for people no matter where they're at in their lives to be a part of our community. Community is what we make it. Everybody should get involved in whatever way they can, whether that's just voting or whether it's joining a board or a commission or even running for office. What do they say? The world is run by those who show up. So get involved however you can and make a difference in the community.
I'd like to call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. May I please get a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Here.
Councilmember Funk,
Present.
Councilmember Rader,
Present.
Thank you. May I please get an approval of the agenda?
Second.
I have a first and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Funk, Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
No, we haven't received any, and none are here tonight.
Okay, thank you. First item up for business is 2025, the approval of the April 14th, 2025 Public Works Committee action letter.
Chair, I move to approve the April 14, 2025 Public Works Committee action letter.
May I please have a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Funk, Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, on to B, Bill number 25-095, an ordinance approving the purchase of installation of office furniture and furnishings by Pure Workplace Solutions as needed for the South Police Substation and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents on behalf of the city.
Hi, good afternoon. John Bunker, Deputy Chief, Police Department. As you said, this is a request for purchase for the furniture for the South Substation. This budget, it's already been authorized. It's included within the project. What we're needing is your approval to make that purchase. We plan to use the cooperative purchasing agreement with Omnia Partners to do that and use an on-call service, Pure Workplace Solutions, who we've used before. So it allows some consistency and in the station furniture that we have at the Lee's Summit Police Department and courts, as well as now our South Substation. So I can answer any more questions if you have any.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions? Can I get a motion for approval?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. May I please get a roll call?
Chair Pryor,
Aye.
Councilmember Funk, Councilmember Rader.
Aye.
Motion passes. Well, I do have one question. When will you guys use the start using the substation?
We're looking at the beginning of July. We lost a little time on our schedule, about 6 weeks, because of some groundwater issues that we've now got solved. But so yeah, our plan all along was to be in there in advance of the school season starting. So we're going to beat that by a good margin. So
I'm excited.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's looking good down there.
It does, yeah. Next item on the agenda, item C, 2025-6930, discussion, MoDOT sponsor a highway program. I believe that's Mr. Park. Thank you.
Yes, Michael Park, Director of Public Works. So we're here to discuss the Sponsor Highway Program at the direction of City Council. So if you recall, we had an annual Clean Team update that was then followed by conversation on beautification, one of the City Council's priority goals. During those conversations, there were questions about the Sponsor Highway Program, and staff had prepared some research and information, shared that with the full council, and then it was subsequently referred to the Public Works Committee for further discussion. So we're here to answer your questions in regards to the state MoDOT's Sponsor Highway Program and its opportunities. In general, just kind of for your recollection, I know most of this information's in the packet, but it was asked of staff to research cost for an annual cleaning of 50 highway from essentially I-470 to the eastern or M291 North junction. And so that cost has been prepared for just a once a month cleaning for an entire year would be about $43,000 a year.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do you have one?
Yep, you go first.
Thanks. Michael, is this the time that we want to talk about the businesses getting involved with our, with our beautification, or?
It's whatever
I
you
know
want
we
to
talked about it
discuss, really.
before.
I mean, we've got the information and we're here to answer the questions. If it's the city council and committee's desire to move forward with the city sponsoring a highway, that's the cost for that particular section. Of course, we can change the scope. The costs are based on the number of lane miles, and lane miles include ramps and those things at interchanges that MoDOT would clean. But it is a program that also doesn't have to be city-sponsored. It could be sponsored by any business, as it most commonly is. This is a program that I believe is implemented through almost every state in the union. And so we have seen examples. I believe city of Shawnee does this. That's the only one that I recall in the metropolitan area that sponsors, as a sponsor, a highway cleanup. But most often it is businesses that sign up, and they pay the annual cost for the cleaning and the frequency of cleaning that they want to for the segment of road or highway that they want cleaned. And as a sponsor, whether it be a business or community, you have the option to have a highway sign installed to provide that recognition and awareness of who is providing that sponsored section of highway cleaning. So in Lee Summit, it's really for 50 highway, 291 highway, M150 highway. The only exception would be I-470. Because MoDOT is already contracting its highway cleanup activities, and so it wouldn't make sense to sponsor a highway that's already under contract.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I would like for us to try to get the businesses involved, because the businesses are the ones that create some of the trash, especially our little fast food places. And what was the other thing that you said? I think that, I can't remember. I think that was, you talked about something else here. I didn't write it down. Did you guys come up with the cost of what you thought we would, so the 43,000 for the Adopt a Highway, so are we working in conjunction with the businesses for them to do the Adopt a Highway, or how did you lay that out?
So far, we've had limited discussion among council members. I believe Councilmember Shields was one to kind of originate some of the conversation. The question was, how much would it cost for the city to sponsor this? It's a little between 3 and 4 mile segment. Now there's more mileage because you add in all the ramps, and you got both directions of travel to add in there. And so that was that 43,000. That's just for one cleaning a month. And then MoDOT will also clean their 3 times a year that they do. So some months there would be multiple cleanings. But the contractor does all of the work. So you just make payment, they take care of everything. They'll issue reports on how much they picked up and kind of create more of that public education material. No discussion to my knowledge has been made up of, does the city partner with somebody else, or is that a cost that businesses could partner together to pay for? I'll just mention that when we were quoted this amount, it was for the city sponsorship. It's likely a little higher for businesses to sponsor, because it's understood that the city wouldn't need a sign put up to advertise the city's sponsorship. And so there's a little bit of savings there. They also provided a discount because it's a governmental entity that would be sponsoring it. And so that they can always get their own quote, just as easy as we did. We went through the online quote portal for that, and a business might want a smaller section. Maybe they just want a mile. Maybe they only want from 291 to the other 291 where their business is located, or perhaps they want from Chipman out in front of that area if it's a business along the Chipman corridor.
So Adopt a Highway works with businesses now anyway.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, they already, most of their businesses with businesses.
Right, so we would just be another business,
Yeah.
Actually.
Correct.
Okay, that really wasn't what I was thinking, was that I was thinking somehow or another that of some way that that the businesses could take some of this responsibility. And I don't know, I mean, they aren't taking responsibility at this time. the problem.
That's correct. We don't have a single business sponsored any section of highway in Lee Summit.
So how come? Is the highway department not promoting that right now? Or do we need to spend that money to start just promoting Lee Summit? You know, Mr. Dunning came up with an idea that we do a campaign, that we spend that money to do a cleanup campaign, which might be a better use of our money if we're not going to get businesses to partner. And then maybe I don't want to start fining people, but it's just like, we got to do something to clean up this trash around here. And our residents and our businesses have got to start being responsible for some of that.
Yeah, that's a good conversation I'm hoping that the city council has. You know, is it the city that should be responsible for participating, or should we, you know, somehow elicit other businesses to engage and participate? And there's many ways we can help MoDOT campaign that. They have their No More Trash campaign that I've seen messages on television, and part of that is sponsor a highway. So they are trying to push the information out, but maybe we have better connections in the community to our local businesses than MoDOT does, whether that's working with the chamber or other organizations. Yeah. I don't know if that requires any financial commitment for us to get out and talk with businesses, say participate, or maybe it does require some sort of maybe an interim city match or something to get businesses to participate, where it's not a full burden of cost to the taxpayers.
Well, I mean, there needs to be something that we put out there, and maybe we even do both, but we've got to put something out there that talks to people about having pride in their city, because everybody complains about the trash. So, but, you know, everybody complains, and if we don't do anything, so I guess it's still up in the air. We're not really making a decision.
I think the only decision we're looking for our committee is whether or not we need to make a financial investment in participating or not, and that probably leads your recommendation or guidance back to the full council. In the event that Mr. Dunning has asked, where's this going? At least we know it's not going, or it is going, to a financial investment, a budgetary decision on participation.
So I would say that, if you ask me, I would say I don't want to give it to I don't want the city to really have to partner with Adopt a Highway, what maybe some, you know, what am I trying to say, Donnie? Some kind of a, you know, a hybrid of that, or, you know, that we start working on a campaign, a Beautify Lee Summit campaign. So something like that, that you could appropriate money to, and whatever the council wants to do from there, but.
Okay. That's good feedback. Any other?
So, Michael, the 43,000 is from basically 470 all the way down the 291 corridor to 50.
It'd be along 50 Highway to the 291 North Junction, where we have the big project there, Lee Summit High School, Highway Patrol, the interchange area there. So it would include that section of 50 Highway and the ramps for each interchange that are MoDOT's.
But it doesn't include the northbound 291?
No, it does not include any part of 291 or 50 Highway east of 291, whether that be 291 north, south, or even the other highways of MoDOT's being 150.
So if, I guess I made a note here when Sunda was talking, and is there negotiations available with MoDOT to say, hey, if we go out and we spend a little money to campaign and get businesses on board that say, hey, the city can get this at X amount of dollars, would you, business A, be willing to put up a couple thousand, business B put up a couple thousand? I mean, at least have that opportunity to recoup. I mean, I think it's something we have to do. I mean, 43,000, I don't know if we, you know, want to come out 43,000, but I also think that we need to let the businesses know that, hey, if we have to do this, it's going to be, we have to figure out a way to monitor their trash. I mean, their trash trucks, when they're getting picked up, what kind of mess they're making, you know, I guess for me to put an answer on the table, I think I'm similar to you. I don't know if we want to just come out and say, hey, we're going to adopt the highway for $43,000 a year and do this. I think we have to have some sort of campaign to get the businesses involved and the rest of the community to say, hey, you know, we're willing to spend some money and help. Who else is?
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Go ahead.
So I really like the idea of partnering with the chamber because that's the business community already, and maybe even possibly like the LSEDC, because that's already the business community, and I feel like that would be very low cost or free to somehow spread awareness and education about the Adopt a Highway program through them. So how did we come up with the 50 highway? Was that just what Councilmember Shields wanted, and that's what we'd...
Yeah, that was, yeah, we're responding to an inquiry, and that's the only part of the highway that was asked how much it would cost, so.
Okay, can we check into the cost of possibly like 291 instead of 50 highway? I feel like that might have more trash, but it may not be as long of a stretch. And is Adopt a Highway ever, do they ever negotiate their costs?
They
Would they
don't.
with the city?
They
wouldn't?
don't negotiate costs, nor do they reimburse. So the highway department and the sponsor highway contractor are they're just different.
Okay.
They're not the same. So it's not MoDOT's crews, it's not their people. They subscribe to a contract that is doing this in Kansas and many other states across the United States where it's the same program. They just have a cost formula that they apply per mile, per cleaning that they do.
And have we ever looked into any grants to see if there's any sort of grants that...
To pick up the highway litter?
For any sort of trash or cleanup or anything?
No trash grants.
No. I personally, if we went that route, I would want to see a sign saying the city of Lee Summit's doing it, just because it shows that we are taking action.
And we could, they said that's there, it just wasn't in their cost estimates.
Is it quite a bit more expensive?
I don't believe so.
Can we make our own sign?
Yeah, we don't want to get into the business of encroachment agreements with MoDOT over sign when they provide it and do it. I think it was less than $1,000 for the sign to be installed.
Okay.
I mean, and that could be part of the community awareness is, if we wanted to reduce the scope, put up a sign, we do our part, you can do yours, something like that. But
yeah.
Some of the feedback I've heard is maybe before we start investing in the city sponsor, we work through the chamber and try to do some more community outreach and awareness, see if we can get any traction with businesses sponsorships, see if there is a need for us to even partner with maybe a business, or if there's just no interest at all, does the city then take the next step to actively engage the program? Is that a
I think that's
reasonable
accurate. And I'm
assessment
not
of your-
against the city adopting a highway.
Okay.
But I do want to make sure that we do spread awareness so other businesses can do it. Because I don't think they probably know about it.
So you said no reimbursements. So we had that conversation moons and moons ago about we clean up and so you're saying they won't even do that with us now?
Not under this program, no.
Not under this program, but that's still out there.
So we've talked a little bit with MoDOT about that. Of course, they're going over some leadership changes. What MoDOT typically will offer are service exchanges as opposed to reimbursement, where we do some maintenance activity for or on behalf of MoDOT, and in exchange they do maintenance of equivalent it's not really reimbursement, but it's a reciprocal kind of cost balancing of work activities.
Okay, so that's still an option on the table.
It is. I think this is probably a better approach when it comes to litter management and control, is to use the sponsor highway program that's already developed. If we were to do anything, we would be contracting it ourselves too. I'm not going to put our operators out on the highways, and MoDOT doesn't want that either. It's the reason they discontinued the whole the old Adopt a Street version of sponsor highway. They don't let people voluntarily go out and pick up anymore. It's all contracted.
I see. Okay, thank you, Mr. Parks. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. With the discussion item, we don't have to forward anything on, right?
Nothing. I can take this summary back, relay it to Mr. Dunning, and he can communicate that back to the full council.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item D, 2025-6957, discussion, stormwater utility discussion, May 2025. Mr. Binger?
All right, good evening, George Binger, city engineer. This discussion is following up the discussion we had on stormwater utility last month. And what this is doing is we're trying to step into discussing level of service, kind of what are we wanting, what do we need, and what do we want from this, from a dedicated stormwater funding source. So if we're looking at, we'll review the level of service, looks at current examples and practices, try to look at what's our vision for the future when it comes to stormwater, and then required versus desired level of service, and then talk about next steps and discussion. So when we're looking at creating a level of service, these are the basically what you see on the left. These are how it's kind of developed the cost centers. This is where the main areas where we have to spend money with the maintenance, compliance, engineer planning, and then the administration part of that. So this is what it's necessary to implement stormwater operations. And on the right are some of the key activities that are within those cost centers. So we're trying to fund the activities, and it's generally managed through these cost centers. And so this is kind of how we step through it in trying to develop a estimated cost for based on an estimated level of service when we are working with our Stormwater Advisory Committee. So when we talk about level of service, there's not an industry-specific definition. So we're kind of looking at how do we want the system to function? How well does it function? Example being when we convey stormwater, do we want to take it to this property line? Our current development standards, we basically convey water to the property line, or that's how we manage the detention. Do we look at that going to the nearest stream? So generally, each stormwater pipe network will outlet into a stream at some point. Do we want to look at going to the city boundary, or do we want to look more holistically, looking at watershed boundaries? So then the other thing we look at in design criteria is, do we want all the stormwater to be collected into a pipe and pipe underground, or do we want to allow certain amounts of overland flow? There's obviously a significant cost increase if we're undergrounding all of the stormwater, but then overland flow, as long as we're convey it in such a way we're not damaging structures, that's a perfectly suitable level of service. We will look at flood risk mitigation. Currently, the current standard is we mitigate risk down to the 1% storm events. Now we have different, like for culverts, sometimes they're designed for a 50-year event as opposed to a 100-year event. We allow some overtopping of the road. Critical facilities, we design to a 500-year event. We, obviously want to elevate those so during up to a 500-year storm event. So how much risk are we willing to look at? What do we want to mitigate in regards to that? Because obviously if we go to a safer, higher standard, it's going to cost a significantly higher amount of money. And then we start looking at water quality. That gets into stream quality, stream bank stabilization, the different lake communities that we have, those type of things. And then are we going to require people to look beyond the property boundaries when we're designing for stormwater management? The other thing we look at is construction criteria, materials. An example being, we've gone from metal pipe to concrete or plastic pipe. Certain types of backfill that's allowed around structures. Construction specifications, how do we build things? Levels of inspection. Are we looking at, will we require more full-time inspection? Do we just want to do post-construction inspection? An example of post-construction is what Water Utilities does with their sewer mains, is after 30 days they'll go and they'll video the line to see if there's any issues with the sewer main, and if they are, it has to be dug up and corrected. So then if we're looking at stormwater through the context of stormwater management, are we looking at critical facilities and emergency access during storms? How do we want to manage that? The APWA criteria for years was written allowing water overtopping a road as long as you had 12 feet dry in the middle so emergency vehicle could get through. The city went to a higher standard where on main roads we want to convey that 100-year event in the culvert. We don't want it overtopping the road. Smaller roads, access roads, collectors, currently we do allow some overtopping. Are there any inhabited structures? You know, that's mainly what we want to focus on, or we want to start looking, is where we're focused now, or do we want to start looking at other things like fences, yards, sheds, open areas, you know, backyards, things of that nature. Beautification enhancements, stream buffers. We're finding that, you know, the natural stream buffers are very beneficial. Setbacks, again, that impacts the, you know, that may have impacts on property by creating that buffer, but that allows the stream to flow in a more natural channel and is, you know, less damaging to private property. Do we want to look at conservation areas, parks, trails, other amenities? And then when we're looking at an example of potential impacts to streams, we can do things like grit chambers or separators in our inlets to collect trash and things of that nature, and so it's not flowing into the stream. But the downside of that is if we're collecting trash or screening it, now we're clogging the system. So there's a balance there. How do we want to approach that? And then when we look at basically kind of the approach we have on most of our stormwater systems is do no harm. So that as we add new to the system, we want to ensure we preserve water quality. We're not causing any harm downstream. Other things we want to, okay, so that's kind of on the design construction side of things. So once it's built, how do we maintain it? Are we looking at response time for sinkhole repairs, emergency repairs? Are we looking at moving into preventive maintenance efforts? How do we want to handle stream bank erosion? This is, you know, generally speaking, we've responded to this when it's exposing public infrastructure such as sewer mains. If it's undermining a fence on private property, we generally don't address that type of stream bank erosion. Then we're looking at culvert maintenance and cleaning under roads, litter collection, you know, like our stream team projects. Right now we're kind of limited to what we do on that to the streams that are publicly owned, which are in a couple of our city parks. How do we want to handle lake dredging? Is the city going to take that on? Does that remain a private responsibility? Annual basin inspections, like all these stormwater detention basins around town require annual inspections. And then, you know, so is that going to remain private with, you know, the city, you know, receiving those inspections and just reviewing the inspection reports, or do we want the city involved in actually doing the inspections? Looking at regulatory requirements, erosion control enforcement is something we must do. Public education is something that's in our permit, but we don't really have the means to do it at this point. Then illicit discharge detection, that's more that proactive, looking for things that are going into the storm drain that shouldn't, and then preventing that. And then looking at land use planning, that's how do we want to look at, you know, future development? Do we want to look at do we want to look at low impact development where we don't allow runoff from the site, or we just, you know, we want to kind of modify where we're at? So that's when we're talking about level of service. Those are things that impact our system. So when we look at priorities, you know, these are some examples that we, you know, look at in discussing stormwater management. Obviously, emergency access. We want the public safety, public life and safety. We want to minimize losses to property damage. So is that structural damage? Is that erosion? You know, what type of damage are we looking at as far as that goes? And then looking at, when we look at stormwater management facilities such as detention basins, retention basins, what type of criteria do we want? How do we want those sized? Do we want that, you know, for each project? Do we want to look back out and look at a watershed and do more like regional type detention? And then we're also looking at, you know, we're having, one of the things we're required to do is the compliance with our permits. So those are things that when we look at, you know, priorities, examples of priorities. So when we look at what's in our strategic plan, stormwater utility or dedicated storm water funding sources is identified as a critical success factor under city services and infrastructure. And then you look there how it supports many of the other features and amenities in our community when we look at stormwater management.
Councilmember Funk has a quick question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Certainly.
So back in your slides, you were talking about the level of service of how we handle sizing and different, I mean, doesn't our design and construction manuals tell us, like when somebody's doing a development, don't they tell us how big the retention or detention pond needs? How big of piping do they need? How big of that? I mean, are we talking about redoing all of those design and construction standards?
That is a question regarding level of service, because right now we do it site-specific. So if a development comes in, they manage the stormwater within their property. But it leaves the property, now we have properties downstream at the same watershed that are affected by that. So do we want to back out more and look at it from a watershed base, where basically, developers in new construction may have to look off-site for that type of improvement? So that would get more into this would get more into master planning, stormwater. So this is kind of an example we're trying to work with. This is like on the PRI property in the south part of town. I mean, we've got the large acreage there. Well, if we can do a stormwater master plan for that watershed, we're looking at 1, maybe 2 regional detention basins instead of doing a basin as each development application comes through. So that's kind of we're talking about a level of service there. So yes, it's addressed currently in our design and construction manual, but do we want to look at it differently?
And I can't see us, I mean, we can have the discussion on where it is. I just want to make sure, so our design and construction manual, we're saying what this does when it leaves the site. We're not changing the design and construction standards for developers who are coming in and they're going to develop a 15, 18 acre site. If it's ag going downstream, I mean, we don't ever know what's going to be there. Maybe nothing. I guess I'm trying to just wrap my head fully around of level of service versus design and construction.
Councilmember Funk, I think you're right. On development, it's a project by project, property by property, design and construction manual. They handle their stormwater controls and management. They're not doing any harm downstream. What we're asking is, does the stormwater utility take on a different role than status quo today? To look at this more regionally, do we create more regional basins? Do we change our standards such that moving forward, the lot by lot development may be a little bit different? Or do you prefer the stormwater utility level service continue the way it is today, where each takes care of their own, you end up with a small detention or retention basin within each development, and it's not approached on more of a macro level?
Okay, I'm with you now.
And so we're just trying to define what is that level service. If we decide, hey, you know what, today's level service with regard to development is okay, yeah, we might need to update the numbers on how we quantify rainfall events and what they need to mitigate, but the overall approach is the level of service we want, then that's okay, that's an answer. But if you're saying, no, we want to take a greater role in managing development, that greater role could be the city and the stormwater utility is managing it from a regional point of view.
Okay, thank you guys. Just wanted to catch up. And one more thing before we get too deep in it. So you were talking about back in your slides of the inspections of the detention ponds throughout.
Yeah.
Previously, I've had several HOAs reach out, one being specific to HOA that I live in. So currently there was never an annual inspection required for those?
There is an annual inspection required by the owner of the basin. Where we've been kind of weak in that area is getting those annual reports back. And so that's, and so we're looking at getting that more of a systematic approach, because, it's inspecting the basin, that the outlet, it's not getting filled in or silted in, that the outlet structure is still working, so it's releasing water at the proper rate. The dry dam is not eroding. So it's a typical, it's an inspection to make sure the basin would function as designed.
Because I know the city just sent out a letter to HOAs saying the state is requiring this and so on and so forth, but the city is willing to do the inspections. Because, a lot of the HOAs are, in a sense, kind of panicking because this is something they never knew they were supposed to do, and they don't budget for that. So is this something we need to put together to let the HOAs know that the city, I mean, does the city want to continue to do this for free?
Well, the city's not actually doing the inspection. The city is monitoring that the property owners or the HOAs are doing the inspection. So that's kind of this question on level of service. Do we want to continue to handle that way where the city's pretty much hands off or just collecting reports? Or do we want the city to be actively involved in either coaching and helping the HOA, here's how you do this, or do we want the city staff actually going out and conducting the inspection?
So right now, the HOAs are 100% responsible for having the compliance of they consult the inspections, they do everything, and then we're just the recipients of their reports. And so is that the level of service we want, or is this the opportunity with a stormwater utility to say, you know what, the city can be more involved? Everything from we're doing more public education about their requirements to the city's actually doing the inspections and issuing the report. So do you think the city should be more involved on these private basins to ensure that they're functioning as they were designed through inspections and reports? Or do we continue to just rely on them? And a lot of times, like you said, they're completely unaware of even the requirements.
There's a lot of them that are I think that's where taking these things piece by piece, I think is going to be critical. The development part of it is one thing, but dropping down into the annual basins inspections, because I know I live in Legacy Woods and they had no idea. I don't know if they've ever done an inspection, to be honest. And I've had two other folks call in the same situation. They're like, hey, what are we supposed to be doing with this?
So as Mr. Binger gets through the presentation, you'll see kind of what the assumed level of service is under the cost analysis that the study had produced. I believe that is just for more public education, essentially to create awareness of these reporting requirements of the private basin owners to do their own inspections or to hire somebody who's qualified to do the inspections. So that's kind of the base level of service that all this has been built on. And we want to get confirmation that's what we want as a community, or do we need to go back and recost this if you want the city to take a higher level of responsibility in actually doing the inspections as opposed to relying on them through just public education to do it on their own.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bringer. Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to get too far.
Any other questions before he continues?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and please ask questions as we go. It's not hold questions till the end. We can, or you can hold them in if you so choose. Okay. So, okay, so we're talking about critical success factors, more alignment with the comp plan. Okay, so if we're looking at talking about level of service, this is kind of where we're at now. Our current level of service is we basically make improvements to the system through our capital improvement plan, through the both the 2007 bond issue that we had, which we have spent all of that money focusing on mitigating structural flooding. Again, these are properties where there was flooding in the structure, and the flooding, the primary cause was the lack of public infrastructure or failed public infrastructure. This doesn't even address concerns about if his infrastructure is undersized or right-sized, because knowing over the years we've had different design criteria for our stormwater system. So again, this is just looking at whether it is lacking public infrastructure or it's failed. Then we added, with that, we added the sales tax in 2017, of which we will be completing the construction efforts on that sometime next year. For that, then we will spend that money. So now we're looking at, identifying more improvements if need be. Then stormwater projects that we work through public operations. Okay, this comes out of the general fund budget. So this is basically, we're looking at life and safety threats from failed infrastructure. So this is the sinkhole. In the past, I've used the term our sinkhole level of service. We wait for a hole to open up and we go fix it. We cannot keep pace with that level. An example being last year, July 1st, July 3rd, we had significant, very large rain events. it generated a large number of sinkholes. You know, it calmed down for a bit because we didn't have, you know, some intense rain events. That year, it kicked off again, the sinkhole response efforts. So if we're looking at, you know, that again, that's just immediate, you know, response to immediate needs. The other thing we need to look at on the stormwater side are preventive programs. Right now, we don't really have preventive programs. You know, permit compliance, that's the, you know, proactively going out and looking for issues, you know, and cleaning out culverts and inlets. I mean, we do that as we can, but generally it's as it's seen or as it's reported by through a service request. Public education, which again, that would, you know, help with things like the basin inspections, the routine inspections, working with HOAs on stream banks and things of that nature. Those are things that we can do through public education, and then getting to the proactive. So kind of the question is this, you know, where we're at now, is it considered an acceptable level of service for our community? I mean, is this where we want to be, where we're at now? So again, more illustrations, more pictures, flooding. And the one on the bottom right, that's Voice Spears Elementary up in Oaks Ridge Meadows. That's an example where looking at the individual construction project versus the macro level. This is in the Little Blue River, you know, right, Little Blue River Valley. So when Longview Lake was built in the 1980s and Blue Springs Lake was built, all that land in Oaks Ridge Meadows was taken out of the floodplain. Well, that's great until you start developing in other reaches of the river. And even though we do detention, the amount of rainfall, you know, runoff will increase because we're increasing impervious area. We're just trying to control that rate to mitigate flooding. But what you see over time is we've seen that the Little Blue River Channel is about, only has about 2/3 the capacity it was designed for. So that's one of the issues we've had come out of the study. And we're seeing a lot of development in this area, and it's kind of pushing the water downstream to the north part of Lee Summit and into Independence. So again, that's where that's the effort to be able to look at it more from a collective watershed-based approach, or more of the micro level project-by-project approach. And of course, anytime the flood waters recede, now we're cleaning up mud and debris. Again, these are examples where we've had sinkhole failures on you know, close to either on or very close to private property. Again, corrugated metal pipe. We've talked about the amount of pipe we have, and again, this is what I refer to as orange fence. I believe this sinkhole up here on the top right is still open because our crew has been called to work on other things, and it's been there for probably about a year now. So I think you see, okay, so desired level of service. Okay, what we have to do, and that's what we're trying to manage within our current budget, is our national pollution discharge elimination system permit, MS4 permit. Those are the MCM stands for mandatory control measures. So that's where we get into the illicit discharge detection, public education, construction site runoff erosion control, post-construction runoff control, and then good housekeeping, pollution prevention for city facilities. Floodplain management. Remember that, you know, as part of the National Flood Insurance Program, we have to do floodplain management. Then ensuring that when things are built new, that we're doing no harm. Public safety, again, that gets it back to the emergency access, life and safety, and then make repairs to the system. That's what we have to do. So then we look at where do we want to go? You know, are we looking at reducing the time it takes to make repairs? Are we looking at, you know, more proactive? When I say proactive emergency response, that's there's a couple roads we know regularly overtop. Do we want to have automated barricades? Do we want sensors? We talked about that. One of, you know, do we want to install stream gauges, rain gauges, where we can see where if we're getting a certain amount of rain that we can expect flooding in certain areas? And all that information would be feeding into the JOF during rain events. Are we looking at more water in the pipe and less overland flow? Any beautification elements? I mean, are we looking at things like rain gardens, you know, the stream team, the litter collection, things of that nature. Do we want to take on private streams as a city? I mean, that's a very significant increase in our level of effort and increase in responsibility. Or do we want to do more of the partnerships, or it's more of the public education and more of the working with property owners on stream elements? Improved materials, again, this is where we kind of get it. When I say improved materials, that also includes design. Do we look at, low impact developments? Do we want to look at different types of construction materials, planting materials, things of that nature? Amenities, do we want to take advantage of like these stream buffers to improve trails and parks in these areas? And capital improvements. How often do we want, what level do we want? Do we want to expand beyond what we're doing now with the structural flooding? And then other thoughts related to level of service. So that's kind of what we're looking at, in this discussion of where we're going to go. So, and then going ahead, okay, so where we're at now, Mr. Park had mentioned the study. Stormwater Advisory Committee, when we were meeting with this was about 3 years ago, what they recommended were 2 crews dedicated to stormwater full-time. And then this would include the crew, which would be a 5-man crew with a supervisor for each crew. This also includes administrative support staff. It would be another engineer, like a stormwater manager, and then a public educator and our environmental specialist. That cost in 2022 is $4.7 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's close to $5 million per year for this level of service. So what that gets us, it gets us the dedicated operations and maintenance. So it will reduce our response time on some of the sinkholes. It will allow us to contract for things like pipe video, CCTV inspections, so we can be more proactive in that. It has the dedicated engineering and technical staff. This is generally where that advisory role comes in if we're working with HOAs and property owners. And then the programs, we'd be able to ramp up our public education, things related to litter control, erosion control permits, inspections, and then getting that preventive maintenance element with our existing system. So that's what this level of service would do. The 2 crews, support staff, and then that's what at the cost of $5 million per year. So one of the things we get out of this is I was looking at some of our cost effects. Basically, for doing the preventive maintenance, that's about half the cost of remove and replace. So if we're able to get in and do some of the lining, we could almost double the amount of pipe that we could treat ahead of time. And the idea being that we get to the pipe before it becomes a sinkhole. Okay, if we look at expanded, one of the options we looked at with the Stormwater Advisory Committee would be if we retain the 2 crews, what if we added a small element of capital improvement to that with the dedicated stormwater funding? And that would basically increase the cost roughly about $1 million per year. Adjusted for inflation, that takes it from $5 million to 6.1. And again, that's more mostly contracted work, more extensive repairs to the system, replacements. And that also allows maybe to get in some more of the master planning for the watershed master planning as part of that. So those are some examples. So at this point, I'll open up to questions, discussion, additional things you want us to look at perhaps.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Rader?
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so the $5 million option, is this just for going back? This is just for the support staff and you say we're not paying for another Stormwater Advisory Committee. You've already have that, correct?
That was the Citizen Task Force.
That doesn't, that $5 million doesn't include any repairs, actual repairs, or is that just is that what you're putting out there and saying, okay, we're gonna have these 2 crews and we're gonna do, $5 million worth of work?
It's the latter. This is repairs, maintenance,
okay.
Some of the proactive stuff. This is 2 crews doing work. every year with the support staff.
Okay, great. And so this, the $6 million option, I'm not really sure what the $1 million bought us.
That is where we get into, let's say we have a culvert to replace under a road. That allows us to go in and replace that. The last 2 culvert replacements we've done have been around $500,000 a piece. This would allow us, if maybe we have, because we have the CIP sales tax that's going to expire. So this would allow us to do some of that work. I mean, we'd programmed $25 million for stormwater over 15 years. So this would be programming $1 million per year for CIP. So that would allow us to do system improvements.
Okay, so proactively, we'd be doing some more proactive, or just doing the projects and not putting off the projects, doing them sooner?
We would be doing some of the smaller projects earlier, yes.
Okay.
Now, again, I say $1 million per year. There's other options to look at too. As we mentioned, the CIP sales tax expires in 2032. Is that something we want to look at? Maybe if we either extend it or make it permanent, that we do more of a split between road and stormwater, and that can focus on the capital side. So there's different ways to get to this capital improvement portion of it, but this gets us started on that, so we can do some of these. What we're trying to avoid is, I think it was about 4 years ago, we had a emergency repair that we came back to council. It was about a $600,000 budget amendment. Because that was one of the pictures I had where the sink was undermining and the trees undermined, leaning towards the house. And that was an emergency repair. Of course, that came out of the city, that came out, I think it was the city's reserve balances where that came from. But again, that's what that's for. So this is an option to help offset some of those costs.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Binger. Thanks, Chair.
Councilmember Funk?
So the trucks, the CCTV, all that equipment, that's in the budget, right? The FY, didn't we put that in?
It is in the budget for one crew, and that crew is part-time, because if there's other issues where, like, pothole patching goes wild and we have to go out and do pothole patching, that crew could get pulled. Now that hasn't happened as much because we've added, I believe, 6 positions over the last 2 fiscal years in operation, so that's helped quite a bit. But that's one crew, and that one crew is still not, really keeping up with the sinkhole effort. But that's some of the things that that's, this would be the equipment to support that crew full-time.
Councilmember Funk, to answer your question, that's in the budget number proposed for a stormwater utility. That's not in any budget the city council has considered adopting to allocate those resources. And I say that to clarify because you might have seen expansion requests in the budget for FY26 and these sort of things, like water utilities has another CCTV truck, the Public Works Department has another dump truck. Those things are separate from a stormwater utility and standing up the resources necessary for that basic level of service. Those are expansions necessary for other services at the water utility department or Public Works for right-of-way maintenance and management.
So none of that equipment is shareable?
Correct. None of the equipment that you see here that Mr. Binger's proposed is in an expansion request that's been proposed to City Council as part of the FY26 budget.
But the equipment that we're purchasing that we seen in the budget that we did last week,
some of that resource can be used, yes, in stormwater maintenance response, some of these more critical issues, very much so. And some of the current resources that we have are being used by, I hate to say it, but what Mr. Bader called the Band-Aid crew. But that's what they're using now. I mean, they're renting an excavator. They're out there with their dump truck, and we've got personnel with limited resource to do what we're currently doing. But we've heard loud and clear from council members, from past council, from strategic plans that what we're doing now is totally inadequate. It's been a recommendation of every strategic plan we've had. And so this was prepared by our consultants saying an improved, or what they believe might be just kind of your basic level service needs, comes with this basic cost. And then they started to detail out a service rate, a utility fee structure that would provide the money for these resources. And right now, before we march too far down that cost and how we come up with the funds for that cost. We want to make sure we've got the right level of service, you know, and that's where we're really trying to have this discussion is, do you want more? If we need more, we need to get a bigger number.
Right. And I think, I mean, from the level of service for like these repairs and events and the stuff that we're talking about, I mean, I like the higher level of service because it seems like it's becoming a continuous problem. But I think going back to, I'm trying to put all of them together and going back to the beginning when we were talking about design and construction and those kind of things. I mean, we have a strategic plan. We have an Ignite plan. We know what we want to go next to what's going there. So I think the design plan should tell us, hey, this needs to be constructed to service a multifamily or to service a strip center or to service whatever. So I think you're on the right path there. I'm hoping I'm making sense. You're the guy that's putting all this together, all you guys in this room. I just want to make sure I'm kind of taking this as two different things.
No, I think I'm hearing your conversation. It's great discussion. It sounds like we don't want to take any more of the design and construction responsibility that private development is having. We may want to, it's kind of what I'm hearing, take a greater role in inspecting or assuring that these things that are built privately are functioning the way they're intended, so we're not making problems downstream as they become silted in. And that the higher level of service, the two-crew approach is probably what we need as a community to get by, and that maybe some of the capital projects, while we can get some of them, there might be other capital improvements that aren't covered by the utility or that require a supplemental source, whether that be bonds or Mr. Binger referred to a sales tax renewal. And maybe at that time we could also expand that to include maybe some private stuff that's, I think to a lay person might say, why is that even private? Because it's connecting two pieces of public infrastructure and they don't have the means to maintain that without getting into it. And so those were some of the other areas we want to make sure that the utility is addressing the way that you as city council are representing all your constituents wants a utility to be addressed. And what I meant by that last part, and it might be on some future slides, kind of the what else are we missing? It was like you might have a segment of open channel or concrete line channel that's currently private, but it's only like 100 or 200 yards long and it connects two public facilities. And we might ask ourselves, if we had a utility, could we take that on? Because how many individual property owners can afford, you know, several $100,000 repair? And we have yet to come up with a set of criteria of what would determine what's public and private in those instances. But that's what a utility could address if you wanted it to address those type of situations. Or we could ignore all that and say, you know what, we're just going to do maintenance, public education, a little bit of small projects as been proposed and work that way. But we don't want to sell ourselves too short.
I think it's important that we have a great level of service. You know, we have a lot of deteriorating infrastructure that we need to focus on. But I also think, I mean, as Mr. Binger said, however, the public education can begin sooner than later, you know, because I think a lot of these HOAs don't know what they're supposed to be doing. North Park Village, I'm sure you've been involved in those conversations. I don't think they really know what they're supposed to be doing, and probably not being derogatory or anything. There's probably a lot of HOA presidents that don't know the difference between a detention retention pond or what you know, it's nothing sarcastic about it. It's just, I think the public education part is huge. And I don't know if they know that, I think, isn't like Lakewood and Raintree, aren't they private lakes?
Yes, they are. They're
the
private lakes.
Part, what, if they're supposed to be doing maintenance, what kind of maintenance are supposed to be doing?
So perhaps maybe we've underestimated the amount of public education resource that's needed with a utility. Right now we've got one person and certainly doesn't have the capacity to do all the kinds of education you're talking about. I mean, this individual used to do more community education and support and awareness, everything from litter and stream pollution to, you know, erosion control measures and those kind of things has been limited now to like flood insurance programming and those sort of things that are absolutely critical for us to comply with our permits and the programs that we've made available to our residents. We need more people if we want to keep doing more of what we used to do and more of what we've never done in that community education realm. And so maybe that's part of the feedback is we need to go back and say, we need more resource in this budget for public education to address some of these issues you've talked about.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think it's vital that may be able to help salvage some other infrastructure that if HOAs and folks know, I mean, I know living in Legacy Woods, we obviously have our basin, and then we also have a creek that runs through from the park. You know, and I know they had to have some trees cut out of there per something or another. So, you know, I think there's a lot of education that would really help some of these folks and maybe save HOA, North Park Village, from spending a lot of money doing a lot of work.
You're welcome. Any additional questions? So will this eventually, and I know you said not to get wrapped up in the funding, but will this eventually, is this the stormwater utility fee that potentially we might?
This is what we're kind of moving towards as the goal. And
Okay.
I use the term dedicated stormwater funding, you know, the fee and how we generate that funding or revenue is, I think, still to be discussed. But as Mr. Park had said, we got to figure out what's our level of service so we know what's our funding goal.
So I personally, I mean, I think it depends on what we end up finding out about the funding, but I like the stronger level of service. I feel like we have so many infrastructure needs we need to address that I would like to maybe start up here and end up in the middle. But I think as of right now, and the education thing is, I feel like, super important, but I would like to start with the highest level of service and then see what we can chip away at based on the costs that we find out. Is that? Any more questions?
Thank you.
It was a great presentation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So before, I just want to put a wrap on that a little bit. We're going to keep coming back month after month to continue these discussions. You know, I know you got a lot of questions. How much do we need to fund is the first one we got to answer. So we'll go back, we'll take this feedback, we'll maybe come up with a new level of service, more comprehensive, get kind of your affirmation that, yeah, we're on the right track. That might be our next meeting. So it might be another level of service discussion. And then we can come back and talk about some of the remaining questions. There's a whole lot of questions. Remember last month we talked about all these questions that we'll get to over the course of.
What I would envision is kind of like a back brief, just say, okay, this is what we think we heard on level of service.
Yep.
And that we can kind of set that stake in the ground and move from there.
Well, and one thing I did forget to mention is I do think it's important that we do inspect the retention and detention ponds, just because it could prevent a large cost in the future if they're doing them correctly. I know Raintree right now, they're actually digging out. Have you seen that? I haven't gone down and looked at it. But, well, all their silt, yeah. Yep, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item E, 2025-6944, presentation, Harris Park Standpipe demolition. Ms. Bagwell?
All right. Amanda Bagwell, Water Utilities Engineering Manager. Here tonight to talk about our recommendation for the possible demolition of the Harris Park Standpipe. So the Harris Park Standpipe conveniently is located in Harris Park at 6th Street and Jefferson. It's a standpipe, again, so named because it looks like a pipe that's standing on its end. So they were really clever when they came up with that one. But I'll get in a little bit later in the presentation to kind of the difference between the standpipe and the water towers, and hopefully it'll make more sense then. But this was constructed in 1960. It's welded steel design. It has a capacity of about 2.15 million gallons, and it stands at 135 feet tall. There's not a whole lot to it. It has the standpipe, the welded steel storage there, and it has a small pump station associated with it. It pumps into and out of the standpipe. Again, it was built in 1960, and for 30 years it served the South system as elevated ground storage until the Ranson Tower was built in 1991. So some background on what changed with the construction of the Ranson Tower. So this is a picture on the right of the South system. It goes from about Strother Road to south of Raintree. As development occurred, the standpipe was insufficient for the needs, so they started construction in 1991 on the Ranson Tower, followed by shear tank in 2000 and hook tower in 2006. So I talked earlier about that the standpipe looks like a pipe that's standing on its end. It basically stores water from the ground elevation all the way to the top of the tower. It works on a system where you're building a water column that's high enough that it can distribute pressurized water to the rest of your distribution system. The Ranson Tower is a similar design, that it creates a water column, but it differs in that it's basically got a storage bowl that sits about 130 foot off the ground. So all of your water level fluctuations take place high above the ground so that it can operate entirely on gravity. It's a more efficient design. It's better for your water quality than the standpipe. So it also sits about, you can kind of tell on the elevation view on the side that the Ranson Tower, the hook, and the shear tower all sit about 30 foot higher than the Harris Park tank standpipe. So again, it operates a little differently. They drain based on gravity. The Harris Park has to be pumped out. So in 2023, we had a water master plan that was completed, and in it, it recommended the demolition of the Harris Park standpipe. It listed a few reasons. One of them, that after Ranson Tower was constructed, we didn't really need to use the standpipe. However, they did still fill it every year right before we hit our peak demands in the summer, just in case they needed a little extra storage. But honestly, it wasn't used very often, so in 2011, it was completely removed from service. We basically stopped filling it and using it. The other reason for the recommendation is that the cost to maintain is high. Current condition, it has been over 20 years since the last time the tank is recoated. As I said, it's a welded steel design with the interior and exterior coating on it. That needs to be redone. It's pretty much at that time. You can see the pump building looks a little rough. We need to, if we're going to continue to use it, it would need to be updated and repaired. And then the pumps and the electrical equipment inside the pump building are aging. They're about hitting the end of the useful life. So what would the demolition look like? Basically, it would be the complete removal of the standpipe tank and the concrete slab it sits on, which would allow it to come back in with some seed and grass and recover that. We would demolish the pump house basically down to the ground. We'd remove the pumps, any above ground piping, and electrical and controls equipment. We'd retain the top slab and the underground piping and vault that we already have there, in which case we would need to, we could push that existing fence back, make it a smaller area, still keep our driveway back there to maintain it, and then we would add a it's actually already existing, but we would move it below ground, a pressure sensor so that we can watch what happens to the system pressure. It's just a good location because it's kind of in the middle of the south zone, and it provides a good reaction for us. So the estimated cost to recoat the tower and to repair the any steel plates, any damage that's occurred to that steel tank, and to repair the pump house and replace the pumps is in excess of $2 million. This is also going to be ongoing maintenance. We recommend inspections every 3 years on a tank like this. And you're probably going to be recoating it every 15 years. The useful life of pumps is usually 20 years. So you're kind of looking at doing a reinvestment every few years. Whereas the estimated cost to demolish it is roughly about $300,000. So we kind of support the recommendation for demolishing it. We think it makes sense. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions or comments? Councilmember Rader?
We don't use it anymore?
No, we really don't. The 3 towers.
We would never need to rehab it. But I gotta say, 1960, that's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it actually is
pretty darn good. It
stood up
lasted us
pretty
a long
well.
time. So I would just say, yeah, we would. Mr. Thorne's got something to say, but God bless that little tank. It did a lot of work, didn't it?
It did a lot of work. And when we were talking about demoing it, what brings us before you to talk about it is one of the guys goes, wow, that's been there a long time. We're like, oh, would somebody be like, oh, that tank is gone. Oh, my goodness. I doubt it, but we thought we'd bring it forward. It really doesn't make sense to keep it. We really don't use it. It's an inefficient way for us to store water. The nature of the tank is that we bring water down, our system is we bring water down to where Chipman and Douglas are, Sled Hill, right? We have a buried tank there and a 5.5 million gallon ground storage tank there and a pump station at our old operations center, and we pump water into the system. That goes at the pressure to fill the towers, which are 30 feet higher than the standpipe. It'll also fill the standpipe, but then if we want to get the water back out, we have to actually pump it into the system. So instead of pumping it once, you pump it twice. It's not very efficient. It's not a great way to do it. And it's really expensive to keep
we need that money for stormwater.
There, yeah, good luck. So we recommend a demolition, and we just wanted to make sure you guys all knew so somebody didn't come and go, they're tearing down the tank.
Yeah.
Spin in the sky.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councilmember Funk? No. I think it's iconic, but I think it's ready for it to come down. Like, it doesn't serve a purpose, so thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that takes us to Roundtable.
Just want to make sure. Thank you all for your work on the CIP. We are delivering it tomorrow night ahead of usual schedule due to our Workday ERP implementation and the budget also being accelerated a month. It went through the Planning Commission without any objection, full support. So just for your awareness, I'll be making a very, very brief presentation tomorrow night on the CIP. And normally we would also have a public comment summary when we have a full schedule to deliver, but maybe fortunately this year we only had one public comment, so this is my delivery of summary for that. It wasn't even really related to the CIP, it was really an objection of wasteful government federal funding and using federal funds on local projects. So unless you just don't want to accept federal grants, we kind of dismissed the comment entirely.
Sounds good. Thank you. I guess with that, then we'll adjourn the meeting at 5:46. Thank you.
Thanks.